You ever notice how quiet it gets when you're hurting? Like the whole world suddenly steps back and watches you fall apart piece by piece, as if it's afraid to interrupt. The people disappear, the noise fades, and all that's left is you and the pain. The kind that doesn't scream, it whispers. It creeps into your thoughts, your breath, your bones, until even silence hurts. And in that moment, when it feels like you've reached the edge of what a human heart can take, something shifts. Because even the heavens can't stand to watch you break any further. That's when the unseen decides, enough. Pain is the mirror you can't ignore. You try to run from it, hide from it, pretend it isn't there, but it follows. It waits in corners, in shadows, in quiet moments when no one else is looking. It shows up in your chest, in your stomach, in the tremor of your hands, in the ache of your bones. People think pain is weakness. They call it misfortune. They try to cover it with noise, with distraction, with smiles that don't reach their eyes. But pain isn't weakness, it's the truth speaking, and truth doesn't knock politely. It barges in, uninvited, untamed, and it refuses to leave until you look at it square in the face. You feel it creeping through your veins, don't you? That slow, relentless pressure that makes everything heavier than it should be. That's not just suffering. That's clarity in disguise. Pain has a way of stripping everything fake away. It tears off the masks. It breaks down the walls. It exposes the parts of you you've been too scared to meet. And it doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't wait for comfort or readiness. It arrives like a storm, and all you can do is face it or let it consume you. Most people choose the latter because facing yourself is harder than hiding. But that's where the growth hides, in the parts that scare you most. Pain teaches things you can't learn any other way. You think lessons come softly, with gentle guidance and kind whispers. But no, real lessons come sharp, unexpected, in moments that knock the air out of your lungs. When your heart feels like it might stop, when your body trembles from the weight of it all, when you're staring into the abyss, wondering if you can ever get up again, that's when you learn. That's when the world strips away your illusions and shows you the raw bones of reality. And it's terrifying, but it's necessary, because you can't build strength without the fire, and fire is never polite. And the strange thing is, pain isn't always yours alone. Sometimes it's shared, passed through the universe, reflected back in ways you can't control. You watch someone else break, and it feels like your own chest is being ripped open. You see injustice, cruelty, loss, and it gnaws at your insides like it belongs to you. That's because the world doesn't separate us, it tests us. It forces us to feel, to empathize, to recognize the fragility of existence. And if you pay attention, you realize that pain isn't punishment, it's participation. It's proof you're awake, alive, and capable of witnessing truth without flinching. People fear pain because they misunderstand it. They think it's a trap, a curse, a failure. But pain is a language. It's not here to destroy you, it's here to teach you. To peel away the lies you tell yourself, the pretenses you cling to, the false comfort you've built around your heart. Every tear, every scream, every restless night is a syllable in the story your soul is screaming to tell. And if you listen closely, you realize the story isn't about suffering, it's about awakening. It's about seeing what was hidden beneath the noise of ordinary life, and finally facing it. You think you can ignore it, but the body doesn't lie. Your chest tightens, your jaw aches, your eyes sting. Your hands shake, everything about you protests the suppression. Pain insists on being acknowledged. It refuses to be smothered under pretense. It refuses to be silenced by distraction. It demands truth. And the longer you resist, the louder it becomes, until you have no choice but to face it. That's the irony of suffering. It's relentless, yes, but it's also liberating. The weight that crushes you today is shaping the strength that will hold you tomorrow. Funny thing about pain, it doesn't care about timing. It shows up whether you're ready or not. It interrupts dinners, sleep plans, and even your bravest illusions of control. But that's the beauty of it. Pain doesn't negotiate. It doesn't ask politely. It forces honesty. It forces presence. It forces awareness. It teaches that survival is not about hiding, and victory is not about comfort. Every heartbeat you feel in the depth of it is proof that you're still here, still breathing, still able to endure, still capable of transforming the unbearable into insight. And the truth you gain from pain doesn't come cheaply. It doesn't arrive wrapped in ribbons or applause. It comes in quiet moments when no one notices, in nights spent staring at ceilings, in conversations you have with yourself where you confront your own fear and doubt. It comes when you finally accept that you are not your suffering, but that it is part of the fire forging who you are. And if you lean into it, if you refuse to run, if you allow it to carve you instead of crush you, you realize something extraordinary. Pain is not the enemy. Pain is the unveiling. Pain is the proof that what you are becoming is far greater than what you were. The body, the heart, the soul, they all carry the scars of this teaching. Every tremor, every ache, every tear is a mark of awakening, a signal that you are alive enough to witness it, strong enough to endure it, brave enough to transform it. Pain doesn't come to destroy you. Just think it does, until you realize it's the exact mechanism through which you are reborn, sharpened, and finally aligned with the truth you've been avoiding for far too long. Suffering has a way of finding everyone eventually. No one is exempt, no matter how strong, how clever, or how careful they try to be. It creeps in like a shadow in a crowded room, silent, unnoticed at first, until suddenly it's everywhere, pressing, suffocating, unavoidable. People run from it, distract themselves, numb themselves with noise and motion, but it doesn't matter. Suffering doesn't negotiate. It doesn't care about your plans, your happiness, your illusions of control. It simply arrives, uninvited, and forces you to face something you've been avoiding, whether you want to or not. And in that confrontation, you learn something about yourself that no comfort ever could teach. You feel it in your chest first, usually, a tightness that won't let you breathe normally. Your thoughts spin like a carousel, a mix of regret, fear, anger, and confusion. And for some reason, it's all amplified in the quiet moments. People try to explain it away as temporary, as something that will pass. But those who have sat long enough with it know better. Suffering is not something that passes. It is something that speaks. It communicates through the body, the mind, the heart. Every ache, every twitch, every restless night is a syllable in the language of endurance, a message that says, notice this, pay attention. This is important. The body is an archive of your hidden pain. People think they can hide it, disguise it, distract themselves from it, but the body remembers. The tension in your shoulders, the clench in your jaw, the way your stomach knots at certain memories, all of it is testimony. The body refuses to lie because the soul is too stubborn. It insists on being acknowledged, Even when the mind wants to suppress, even when the world wants you to pretend everything is fine. You can fake a smile, you can speak in casual tones, you can act unaffected, but deep, down in the quiet, the body is screaming, the truth. Pain teaches things that comfort never can. It strips away illusions, exposes lies, and removes the thin veneers of pretense you've built around your life. You think you're strong, or smart, or prepared, but suffering has a way of testing you that nothing else can. It forces honesty. It forces confrontation. It forces you to meet yourself fully, without disguise, without excuse. You feel every raw edge, every sharp corner of your own being, and you realize that the person you thought you were was only a shadow of what you could endure, of what you could become. And here's the cruel beauty of suffering. It doesn't announce itself with clarity. It arrives in fragments, in whispers, in the small, almost imperceptible cracks in your life. A missed call, a lost opportunity, a quiet betrayal, an unspoken truth, these are the seeds. And when they accumulate, when the small fractures connect, the weight becomes undeniable. That's when it hits in full force. And the full force of suffering is not comfortable. It rattles the mind, shakes the soul, and awakens every dormant fear you've been hiding from. But it also awakens something else, the possibility of change, the chance to see yourself as you really are beneath all the pretense. People fear suffering because they equate it with weakness. They see the trembling hands, the tight chest, the racing heart, and assume it is a signal of failure. But it is the opposite. Those tremors are signs of life, proof that you are still in the arena, that you are still capable of feeling, of enduring, of transforming. Each moment of pain is a test, not of your limits, but of your resilience. It doesn't break you unless you allow it to. It challenges you to choose, will you succumb to it, or will you let it forge you into something stronger, sharper, more awake? And suffering doesn't only teach endurance, it teaches empathy. When you sit long enough with your own pain, you start to notice it in others. The quiet tension in a friend's eyes, the nervous laugh of a stranger, the hesitance in someone's voice, they all start to speak the same language your body has been speaking for months or years. You become fluent in the dialect of struggle, understanding that everyone carries invisible weight. And with that understanding comes a strange kind of power, the power to be compassionate, to be patient, to be real. The kind of power that doesn't rely on privilege or luck, only on the depth of your own experience. Suffering is relentless because it is essential. It will not ask for permission. It will not wait for readiness. It will continue pressing, gnawing, reminding, until you finally pay attention. And when you do, when you stop running, when you allow yourself to feel it fully, to let it move through you instead of against you, something shifts. The edges of your soul sharpen, your awareness expands, and the raw material of your pain is transformed into something enduring, something unshakable, something alive. That is the paradox of suffering. It is unbearable, and yet it is the crucible through which you are forged into. Your regret is a funny thing. People treat it like a curse, something to be feared, something to hide. But the truth is, it's the most honest reflection of what you care about. It creeps in quietly at first, slipping through your mind like a shadow, then grows heavier the longer you ignore it. It comes in memories, in what-ifs, in every choice you didn't make, every word you didn't say, every action you wish you could undo. You can try to bury it, but regret has teeth. It gnaws at the edges of your thoughts, sharp and unrelenting, until you're forced to confront it, whether you want to or not. You feel it in your chest, in that tightness that never seems to go away. It wraps itself around your ribs, your lungs, your heart, and reminds you of every misstep, every failure, every disappointment. People tell you to move on, to forgive yourself, to let it go. But it doesn't work like that. Regret isn't meant to vanish. It's meant to teach, to illuminate the places you ignored, the choices you compromised, the truths you refused to see. It's not a punishment, it's a mirror that doesn't lie, a mirror that forces you to look at yourself fully, without excuses, without pretense. And here's the cruel thing. Regret isn't passive. It doesn't wait quietly for you to notice. It grows, it shifts, it rearranges the landscape of your thoughts until the past is alive in the present. You see the faces of those you hurt, the moments you missed, the opportunities you ignored, and it stings like acid. You try to distract yourself with work, with noise, with company, but the shadows follow. They find their way into the quiet moments, the empty rooms, the sleepless nights. That's when you realize regret isn't an enemy, it's a companion. One that doesn't leave until you face it. You think you can run from it, but regret is stubborn. It finds cracks in your defenses, slips through gaps in your armor, and plants seeds of reflection in places you didn't expect. You notice patterns in your life, echoes of old choices, and the realization hits that everything you avoided, everything you ignored, everything you denied, comes back to you with interest. That's the danger and the beauty of regret. It is precise. It doesn't exaggerate. It doesn't distort. It shows you exactly what you need to see, no more, no less. The strange part is, regret isn't always negative. It carries within it the blueprint for transformation. It exposes the weak spots in your character, the places where your integrity faltered, the ways you've compromised your truth. And if you pay attention, if you allow it to guide you instead of torment you, it becomes a teacher. Every pang, every memory, every whisper of what could have been is a dispensation, signal, a direction pointing toward growth. But most people ignore the signals. They fight them, numb them, pretend they aren't there. And that's why regret turns toxic. It isn't the feeling that kills, it's the refusal to understand it, the refusal to learn from it. People fear regret because they see it as a reflection of failure, of weakness, of mistakes that define them. But the truth is, it's one of the most honest indicators of what matters to you. What you regret most is often what you valued most, what you allowed to slip away, what you refused to fight for. That's why it burns. It's not random, it's purposeful. It forces awareness. It forces honesty. It forces you to confront the person you've been and the person you want to become. And regret doesn't just live in your head, it lives in your body. The tension in your shoulders, the ache in your chest, the restless energy that won't let you sleep. All of it is a manifestation of unresolved choices, of ignored opportunities, of unspoken truths. You can cover it with distraction, with laughter, with routine, but it never disappears. It only waits, quietly, until the moment you can't ignore it anymore. That's when it speaks loudest, and if you're paying attention, you start to hear the lessons hidden in the pain. The irony of regret is that it's relentless, yet it's merciful. It won't let you settle for mediocrity, for lies, for avoidance. It demands clarity. It demands confrontation. It demands truth. And when you finally listen, when you finally embrace it, something shifts. The weight starts to teach you, to sharpen you, to guide you toward the person you could have been if you had faced your choices, if you had taken the risks, if you had spoken the words. That's the paradox of regret. It hurts because it's honest, and it's honest because it wants you to grow, to awaken, to stop hiding from yourself. Regret is the unseen mentor, the quiet observer, the unyielding reminder that life is happening, choices matter, and time does not wait. It's uncomfortable, relentless, and unavoidable, but it is also necessary. It is a mirror, a map, a message. It exposes the corners of your life that need attention, the shadows that need light, the truths that need facing. And if you let it, if you sit with it long enough to understand, you realize that regret is not the end of your story. It's the part of your story that forces you to see the path ahead clearly, the part that sharpens your vision, the part that readies you for what comes next. Anguish has a way of entering quietly at first, a whisper at the edge of your mind, barely noticeable until it grows sharp and insistent. It settles in your chest, coils in your stomach, and whispers to every nerve ending that something is wrong, that something has been overlooked. People try to ignore it. They tell themselves it's temporary, that it will fade with time, or they distract themselves with noise and motion. But anguish doesn't care about convenience. It doesn't bend to comfort. It waits, patient and relentless, until you confront it. And when you do, you realize it's not just pain, it's the echo of truth speaking through suffering. You feel it in the restless hours of the night, when the world is silent and all pretense falls away. The heart pounds, the mind races, and memories unbidden rise to the surface, sharp and unwelcome. It's not the kind of discomfort that can be silenced with laughter or conversation. It digs deeper, into the marrow, into the very fabric of your being. And in that depth, you realize that anguish is a teacher that does not sugarcoat, that does not excuse, that does not care about your excuses. It forces honesty, forcing you to face the fractures in your life you have long avoided. Most people fear the intensity of this internal storm. They see the trembling hands, the racing pulse, the shallow breaths, and assume it is weakness. But it is the opposite. That intensity is proof of life, of consciousness, of engagement with reality. Anguish shows where the soul has been suppressed, where the desires, fears, and truths that have been ignored are demanding attention. It is the weight of existence pressing on you, and every moment of endurance is an unspoken act of courage. To sit with it, to feel it, to let it pass through you instead of running, is to confront yourself fully. And the world doesn't help. It prefers the polished, the smiling, the put together. People are quick to offer platitudes, to advise moving on, to insist that it's only temporary. But anguish does not respect platitudes. It cannot be rushed, forced, or hidden. It waits in the quiet, in the stillness, in the cracks between the moments where you try to appear normal. And if ignored, it grows sharper, more insistent, breaking through your defenses in unpredictable ways. The body, the mind, the soul, they all carry the imprint of it in tremors, tension, and restless nights. There is a strange beauty in the relentlessness of anguish. It refuses to let you settle for lies or illusions. It strips away the distractions, the comfort, the false identities you hide behind, until you are faced with the raw, unpolished truth. It doesn't come to destroy, it comes to awaken. Every ache, every pulse, every tight breath is a signal, a guidepost pointing toward a version of yourself that cannot be accessed without the intensity of feeling. That is the paradox. What terrifies you, what shakes you to your core, is also what is forging the real, unflinching version of you. And yet, most people fight it. They try to numb, to escape, to distract themselves. They fear the depth because it is unknown, uncontrollable, because it demands surrender. But surrender is not weakness, it is acknowledgement. It is recognition that the process cannot be bypassed, that growth cannot be rushed, that clarity cannot be purchased. Anguish does not bend, it compels. And through that compulsion, you learn about resilience, endurance, and the capacity for transformation that had remained dormant until confronted by intensity. It shows you where the past lingers, unprocessed, unhealed. Every memory, every unresolved grievance, every choice left unexamined becomes amplified until the weight cannot be ignored. The body responds first: tight shoulders, clenched jaw, restless nights, stomach churns, fatigue that is both physical and emotional. Then the mind follows, racing, questioning, turning over every possibility, every failure, every what if. The soul waits silently, waiting for recognition, for acknowledgement, for the acceptance of its own truth. Anguish is also mercilessly honest. It does not lie. It does not mislead. It strips away the illusions that comfort you and forces you to face the realities you have long avoided. You can try to explain it away, rationalize it, distract yourself, but its presence will not relent. And in facing it, in enduring it, in allowing yourself to experience it fully, you discover something profound. The fire of anguish refines rather than destroys, shapes rather than breaks, illuminates rather than blinds. It is a forge, and you are being tempered within its heat. The human capacity for endurance is revealed only through confrontation with this kind of intensity. The trembling hands, the racing heart, the restless mind, they are signs, not of failure, but of life being lived fully. The moments when you feel most exposed, most vulnerable, are also the moments when growth takes root. Because anguish does not come to harm, it comes to awaken, to force the confrontation with self that the world cannot provide, to demand recognition of the truth that has been waiting in the shadows, until you are ready to see it, to feel it, and to emerge from it transformed. Hopelessness creeps in quietly at first, like a shadow stretching across a room you thought was safe. You don't notice it immediately. You're busy surviving, pretending everything is fine, laughing when it's forced, nodding when it's convenient, masking the gnawing emptiness inside. But it doesn't stay quiet for long. It seeps into your thoughts, your words, your actions. It whispers questions you can't answer, doubts you can't ignore, fears you can't push away. And suddenly, the weight of it all presses down like a physical thing, an invisible hand gripping your chest and squeezing until you wonder if you can breathe at all. People panic when hopelessness strikes. They try to fill the void with distractions, with noise, with mindless movement. They tell themselves that if they stay busy, the feeling will vanish. But it doesn't. Hopelessness is not a guest you can shoo away. It is persistent, relentless, and unflinching. It doesn't care about convenience or timing. It comes when you're alone, when your defenses are down, when you're most vulnerable. And it teaches you something very uncomfortable. Survival is not about waiting for rescue. It's about endurance, about meeting the void face to face and refusing to let it consume you. You feel it in every part of your body, the tightness in your chest, the heaviness in your limbs. the restlessness that keeps your mind spinning in circles. You try to distract yourself with the things that used to bring comfort, but they fail. Even laughter becomes hollow. Even familiar voices feel distant. That's because hopelessness doesn't want to be ignored. It insists on being recognized. It forces confrontation with the truths you've been avoiding. And if you pay attention, if you sit with it long enough to truly feel it, it becomes more than just pain. It becomes a teacher, a guide to the depth of your own endurance. And there is a strange, unsettling clarity in hopelessness. When everything you relied on to feel safe falls away, when the masks you wore are stripped from your face, when the illusions that comforted you are destroyed, you are left with yourself, raw, unpolished, unprotected. And in that rawness, you begin to see who you really are. You see the parts of yourself you've neglected, the strength you've underestimated, the resilience you didn't know existed. Hopelessness doesn't just take it, also reveals. It exposes the hidden reservoirs inside you, the power you forgot you had, the courage that has been waiting quietly for a chance to rise. People fear hopelessness because they confuse intensity with weakness. They see trembling hands, racing thoughts, and pounding hearts, and assume they are losing control. But the truth is, those signs are evidence of life, of consciousness, of the capacity to feel deeply, even when it's painful. They are proof that you are not dead inside, proof that your soul is awake enough to endure, proof that you have not yet surrendered to despair. Every moment of tension, every restless night, every heartbeat that fights against the heaviness is a victory, small but undeniable. And hopelessness teaches patience. It teaches that growth is not linear, that recovery is not instant, that endurance is built in the spaces where you feel most incapable. It shows you that life does not always provide comfort, and that often the only path forward is through the weight itself. You cannot rush it, you cannot ignore it, you cannot pretend it isn't there. You must meet it, you must feel it, you must move through it, step by trembling step. And in doing so, you discover strength you didn't know you had. It also teaches empathy. When you have sat in the depths of hopelessness, you begin to recognize it in others. The quiet despair in someone's eyes, the way their hands tremble when they try to hold it together, the way they speak around their pain, all of it becomes familiar. You learn to see what others cannot hide, and in that recognition, you find connection. You realize that nobody escapes suffering untouched, and that the shared experience of endurance is one of the most profound bonds that can exist. Hopelessness is unflinching, but it is not your enemy. It strips away illusions, exposes truths, and forces confrontation with yourself. It teaches endurance, patience, empathy, and resilience. It awakens the parts of you that have been dormant, waiting for a test you didn't know was coming. And if you lean into it, if you allow yourself to feel it fully without running, you realize that hopelessness is not a sentence, it is a crucible. It is the furnace in which courage is forged, where strength is discovered, where the quiet power of survival is revealed, and where the soul learns that even in the darkest void, the capacity to endure is limitless.